Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Thoughts from the Round Table, the only podcast that bases their entire brand off a table yet refuses to sit at one. I'm Pierce.
I'm Jacob.
And today we're going to be talking about a little movie called The Little Things. Do you see what I did there?
Yeah, it was really clever,
Thanks.
except that they both just involved the word little.
Yeah,
I actually don't think this was a little movie either.
it was kind of a large one.
It was pretty I don't know if it's popular, but it had some big name actors.
Yeah. So it should be called The Big Things.
No?
Okay.
You should say a big movie called The Little Thing.
Okay. Let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
That's all.
So this movie, it's a murder mystery in a sense, as silly as that sounds, but that's what I would say it is. It's not orthodox though, where it's a cut and dry killer. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but you know, it's not orthodox. You want to just kind of give them a brief explanation of the plot?
Yeah, I'll give you an explanation of the plot. And Jacob said, I don't want to spoil you. The explanation of the plot would be spoiling.
No,
so.
I'm saying like I didn't want to throw it out right away.
Okay. Well, I'm going to spoil it.
Now you can because we've talked about it.
Thanks. All right. Spoiler alert. Basically, here's the thing that happens. We have, now stop me if you've heard this one before. City cop gone too involved in a case, needs to take some time off, becomes a beat cop in the downtown, comes back to the city on assignment. New age young city cop looks to old city cop who'd solved murders for advice and guidance on a very similar murder that he had back in the day. It's a buddy cop movie starring Denzel Washington and Rami Malek and Jared Leto, who is like the psychopath,
The cool guy.
We're supposed to think he's kind of a kooky boy.
He's a bit kooky.
He's a bit kooky, bit quirky. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the essence of what the movie is about. There are a couple scenes a couple plot points we're gonna have to dive into a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, think about the movie Seven. Have you seen that movie?
Love it.
It's that.
It's good. It's not as good as Seven, though.
No, this is not as good as Seven. I think there's some major flaws in this movie, which we're gonna discuss. But overall, if you're looking for a movie kind of like Seven that's coming out, looking for a new movie that's kind of like fun, I'd recommend it.
It's good. I liked it. A lot of people didn't. Let's talk about why they didn't.
Okay.
They said it felt hollow and that the ending wasn't what they expected. I actually thought the ending was the best part of this movie.
I did too.
I understand when people are like, well, there's some boring parts. I agree. The pacing wasn't always perfect, but you know what was perfect? Was the actual ending. Not just the part where Rami Malek kills the man, kills Jared Leto, right? I thought that was fine. It's literally taken from Seven. They drive out into a desert. Except I would have liked Rami to yell, "What's in the box?" This is like one of my favorite movie lines ever. I think I might get it tattooed on my butt cheek.
I think that would be really appropriate.
Anyway, yeah, that was fine. But the ending, where we question the morality of our characters and question our characters in general, is my favorite part of this movie. Denzel Washington, he sent Rami a red beret because the girl had a red beret when she ran that he was looking for, and they couldn't find her. So he made it up that the red beret was in the guy's house. It was a lie. He bought him. This whole movie, you didn't trust any of the characters.
Yeah. And I think you're left at the end wondering if any one of those characters is actually having any good intentions. Because like Jacob said, the killer in this movie, right? What was I? Oh my God, I'm really off right now. Give me a minute. Okay.
I'm going to keep this in. You
Yeah?
smacking yourself.
Gotta get back into it. Anyways, what I was trying to say was we see the killer from a very early part in this movie, and the killer is the least important part of this murder mystery. We've got these two cops, both immoral in their own ways, and we are seeing throughout this movie more and more is being revealed to show that both of these people are pretty shitty guys. And then And then it culminates by the person we're supposed to hate being killed by the people that were the protagonist. The antagonist is killed by the protagonist unlawfully, unjustly, and then we're just supposed to be like, what? Who were we rooting for here?
Right.
Who was good? Who was bad? Was there a such thing? This movie dealt in shades of gray,
Yeah.
and that's it.
When we walked out of the movie, I said, "This is how you don't trust a character 101." Right? Like, you don't morally. None of the characters are straight shooters. Denzel has his own problems, like pretending that he didn't kill someone. Rami Malek is obsessive. He's obsessive about finding the case, and he's going to do anything, including the same mistakes that Mr. Denzel did. Like, working too much and losing his family. So you don't really like that. You kind of want your people you like to like their family. And then you got Jared Leto, who is probably the least straight shooter of them all, because, like, he likes being attacked by cops in a sense. He likes being interrogated. He's a crime junkie, but not in a great way.
I thought that was a really interesting point. And maybe it's because I don't watch a lot of these type of movies, these detective movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, as a true crime junkie myself, I prefer, like, documentaries when it comes to this instead of movies. But I think it's really interesting to take, like, a true crime junkie's approach to, being a murder suspect. Because, like, he wanted to keep his rights waivered card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's really interesting. And it's an interesting dynamic because it immediately sets up that, is this guy actually a suspect, or is he just wanting to be a suspect so he can be a part of the news, be a part of what he likes reading about?
Mm-hmm.
And so from the very get-go, you're like, wait, is this guy it?
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the movie, it slowly, like, hints at you, like, oh, maybe it is. And at the end, you're left with a question of, like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Who did any of this?
It's not a classic whodunit.
No, we don't know, and that actually pisses me off.
Yeah. So,
in a good way.
do you think we know who did it?
I think. Okay, so if we're gonna move on to this section of the podcast, the whodunit section.
Yeah.
I really like the theory that Denzel Washington was the killer.
Yeah, so I know that it's kind of up in the air. And I kind of thought he was at first, too.
Mm-hmm.
But I just really don't think so.
Well, there's several key clues that kind of point to him, which I find pretty compelling. Number one, the big thing about the killer, we see it in the opening scene, is his boots. His boots that were made for walking. And that's just what they'll do. Yeah. That's all we see about the killer. And we see that Mr. Denzel has a very similar pair of boots throughout the movie. And that was my first kind of red flag. Like, oh, wait, Mr. Boots Boy. And then we also saw the scene where Mr. Washington killed his victim, basically. Now, this is a really interesting scene. I feel like we're going to have to talk about it a lot more. But basically, gist of the scene, he's investigating a crime. He's got two bodies. And then lady comes out. She's the third victim. She's escaped with her life from the killer. And I guess the movie claims that Denzel thought it was the killer maybe, or got spooked, pulled out his gun, shot. Dead. Call me crazy, is that how police work goes?
What do you mean?
When you're on a murder case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to kill the killer? I mean, maybe you do personally, but your first goal should not be to, kill it.
Right. Bring him to justice.
Bring him to justice. Send him through the court. You want to catch him.
Right.
That's what the thing is. And so I just find it hard to believe that this straight shooter of a cop, basically, is what we're telling him. His only problem is that he works too hard, getting spooked and then shooting a victim. It also, he hesitates a tad bit. He looks back at his partner. Boom. Could that be because he's the killer?
And they knew it.
She would be the only one to bring him to justice? So he pops a cap on her ass?
Am I changing my mind on this theory because of that? That's pretty good. I don't know. Is he the killer?
Let me raise you one more, Jacob. Not only do we have those two pieces of evidence, but also we have the ending scene. And when you think about it, it gets pretty fucking crazy. Mr. Denzel Washington. Once Rami Malek slaps Jared Leto right silly across the face. Jared Leto's passed out on the ground, right? Dead. Denzel's like, all right, bury him 4 feet, at least 4 feet deep. Blah, blah, blah. We'll be back in the morning. Now, that is a fine thing. You know, you think, okay, well, he's a cop. He knows how to hide a body because he knows how to find a body.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is what he does with the houses, with his house. It kind of shows a little bit of MO when he goes back to the house, you know, cleans everything up in trash bags. It doesn't look like this is the first time this has happened.
Yeah, because he's good at it.
He's efficient. He's sitting in there. He's reflecting. When he's sitting in there, here's my kicker. Here's the point. What does he see? He sees the girls. The girls that we're supposed to believe he's obsessed with finding justice for. And yet where does he see them? As ghosts haunting him, as he's cleaning up another crime scene. Another one of his murders that he's done countless times before. His last victims appear to him to haunt him.
So he's the killer. I knew all along. I knew all along it wasn't Jared Leto.
No.
Right? The evidence is so against him being the killer. The only thing that tried to convince you that he was the killer is that he had 2 cars and one of them was high mileage. He's killer. I don't know. I don't buy that at all. Lots of people have cars that are high mileage. That being said, it's 100% Denzel Washington. I was going into this podcast with we don't know who it is, and we'll never know because there's definitely no sequel. But he 100% did it. The ghost thing is actually the one that sold me. Because why else would... They're his angels.
No.
There's
his
demons.
And that's what gets me kind of hyped about this movie. It's like the little shit like that. I know the only other evidence that I saw that kind of really secured that little theory for me is how quickly, or how Denzel Washington knew the MO of the killer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he spouted it out. Boom, 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 boom. This is what you're looking for. I don't know. That's not as convincing to me. That one is the one that sold me. The cleaning up. He knew how to do it. I think Denzel Washington did it. I think the movie basically wanted us. I think this movie's main goal was to subvert our expectations. So by making the main protagonist actually the antagonist, I think it accomplished its goals.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk about more what you said earlier about this movie feeling a bit hollow. Critics are saying. And I kind of do agree.
I do too.
It's not 7.
No. Even though the acting, right, because this is one of the most important things to me in movies is the acting. I actually really liked the acting in this movie. Was Denzel Washington perfect? No. He came off a little corny at times. This movie came off a little corny at times. Mostly with Denzel and, a couple plot lines felt useless.
That's a good word for it.
Namely the blonde girl in the beginning. And then she tried to point out Jared Leto. I don't know. It didn't add anything, did it?
No, and actually I think subtracted from it.
I agree.
Because I guess you were supposed to think... I think their point was like, oh, well, she picked him out So like maybe it's him, but it's also she saw him in cuffs, so it's tainted, and she already is envisioning him as a criminal. You know, I feel like it was supposed to be like, oh well, is he, isn't he? We had enough of that. We don't need a third.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would also. This just going back to the Denzel thing. It just popped in my mind while you explaining that. It would also show like why Denzel wanted to pin it on Jared Leto's character so bad.
Yeah.
Because he was set in stone. He did it. Also, part of the reason the movie felt hollow was there's clear. Okay, you just had.
No, you go
okay.
on. I just.
The movie felt really hollow because they tried to make a clear parallel between Rami and Denzel. I just wasn't really buying it. The only thing that they had in common was they had families. Like, they tried to push it so hard, the parallels between them. They both had daughters. They both had the same position. They both really got dug into a case. They're the same character. Ha ha ha. This is what happens if you don't if you dig too far into a case. Yeah, we get it. You don't have to just keep throwing it in our face. The thing that overdid it was like, oh, they both have daughters. You don't have to make an exact you're trying to make parallels. I get it. You don't have to make them the same character. They were the same character. Quiet. Subdued. You always thought they were trying to do the best. They were both workaholics. You don't have to make the same character twice. That's why this fails as a buddy cop movie. Buddy cop movies work when you got one. We're going to talk about Seven a lot. We already have. Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman are opposites. That's why that movie works as a buddy cop. They aren't opposites. They're the same person.
That's a great way of explaining why it feels weird.
Big reason why it feels hollow.
Mm-hmm.
They have two of the same characters. Don't do that. Write two different characters.
Yeah. Real quick before we go more into this, I just thought about this while you were explaining. This is a little bit of a backtrack. Sorry about this, guys. A little bit of a backtrack. Jacob said that it would explain why Denzel Washington wanted to frame Jared Leto so much if he was the killer. Expanded on that, we have one of the most important lines in the movie, I think. It was in the trailer, and it was basically like Denzel Washington asking Raimi, he's like, why are you doing this? And Raimi was like, well, I'm doing this to find justice for the victims. And then Denzel said, I want to catch him just as bad, but I'm doing it for me. Dude, he's the killer.
Yeah,
he's the killer.
He is.
He's the killer.
Yeah.
That was all I wanted to say. I just really thought about that on the fly, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's... Okay, I'm sold. The one thing that didn't feel hollow about this movie to me was Jared Leto. I'm ready to go against the grain on this one. He was excellent in this movie. Sure, the interrogation scene was Batman and Joker from The Dark Knight. But if you do that, I'm going to like it. You know? He was so good in this movie. It made the movie for me. Where the writing could have easily been lazy. And, like, could you name another person? I'm sure there are other people out there, people on the internet, before you get mad. But could you name another person who was as good in this role as Jared? He was good. Does he deserve an Emmy? Probably not. That's beside the point. But
he might deserve a nom.
He did get a nom.
Yeah, I think that's deserved.
He was really good.
I thought he did really good. I thought that he was really all in on his role. And I think you could tell that he was having fun with the role.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is something to say about them literally typecasting every one of these actors. That's true.
Yeah.
That's fair. You know, these roles were completely built for each actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that doesn't deny that it was still good. I mean, they were typecast for a reason.
Yeah, and so I'm a big fan of physical acting.
Mm-hmm.
That's why some of the old movies, they really tickle me. Not in that way, but, you know, give me some enjoyment because it's physical. I like physicality. Jared Leto's really physical in his acting in this movie. He's a chunky boy. He walks even like a fat person, which as a fat person, it's hard to pull off unless you're really fat. Which Jared Leto's put on weight and lost weight for roles, but this was probably a fat suit.
Yeah.
But
I would imagine.
he looked like a fat person when he walked, which hats off to you, my man. I really liked that. Yeah, he was really good in it.
He had a lot of it's kind of ridiculous. He played a much better Joker in this movie than he did in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, you said that.
I said that this podcast?
No, not this podcast. Walking out of the movie.
Oh, yeah. Because, like, this was... Okay, let's face it, right? Heath Ledger made the Joker. The modern-day portrayal of the Joker was love-crafted by Heath Ledger and Christopher Nolan. That's fine. They did it. So now,
Perfect.
We've got movies like Joker, which basically just said, what did Heath do? Let's try to make that a bit sadder and more intense.
Mm-hmm.
And then no one's looking back at like Cesar Romero's Joker and being like, aha, that's the one we're gonna click. So I think that's why Suicide Joker felt weird, because like, oh wait, that's just not Heath Ledger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't just, it was different. It was very kooky and out there. And this movie is a very much more in line with how people expect to see a cinematic Joker. And it proved to me, one, that Suicide Squad was just bad direction. Just really bad direction. Because Jared Leto can play the role.
Yeah. I've tried to defend, I'm pretty sure I've defended DC on not this exact podcast episode, but on this podcast before. I love how we're already taking a superhero spin, but I'm done doing it, right? You're dead to me, DC. Jared Leto was a good Joker, and you could have written a good Joker, but you refuse. You refuse. You didn't give him time to flourish. People, give him some time. I guess I'm gonna defend DC for the last time. He didn't have the time to become a good Joker. He didn't have the direction to become Joker. He didn't have good writing to become a Joker. We see he has the talent for it. I haven't seen Jared Leto in many movies, but he was really good in this movie in saying he portraying someone who could or could not have killed someone. He might have killed someone in real life, though. You know.
Yeah, I don't think he killed anyone in this movie.
But killed someone in real life.
That was a little too eerily realistic. That man's murdered before.
Yeah.
And he's got away with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that the little things. Here's the thing about the little things.
Here's the little thing about the little thing.
Yeah, the little thing about the little things. It's not a perfect movie. It's not an Oscars movie. It's not a great movie. It's not even a funny movie. You know, we do a lot of movies on this podcast that suck. But
True.
that we say are awesome because they make us laugh. This movie is not one of those. This movie is perfectly average. It is an entertaining movie that I would give you maybe 3, if you're watching this at home, I would say 3 sessions of 5 minutes of looking at Instagram during the movie, but the rest is pretty captivating.
Everybody, thanks for listening to this podcast. But before we go, we have a couple things to say. One, our next movie we're going to be watching is the Netflix original, The Dig. It's an archaeology movie. We have some things to say about it. We've already seen it. But in case you want to watch it before we talk about it, watch it before we talk about it.
It's a good idea. We'll talk about it next Monday.
Yeah. Also, if you're interested in our things that we do, and maybe our social media or peers streaming on Twitch, check out the link below. There's some stuff there. You can say, hey, these tools are pretty cool. They're cool tools.
Cool tools.
Let's watch some more of their stuff. You could do that.
Yeah, it's completely optional, but
Yeah.
we would be most appreciative of you coming over.
Yeah, also, shameless self-promotion. Please subscribe. Please like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Please review us on Apple. That'd be real chill of you.
Yeah, any reviews on Apple Podcasts are pretty appreciative. Do we have any?
Yeah, I think 7.
We have 7?
7 reviews.
Do we really?
I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Yeah, I think, what do we have? 6
We have
ratings.
6.
And if you want to leave a little message like, hey, Goose Bags, this is a funny podcast. This podcast makes me go, ha 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 ha.
If someone puts that on there, they're a true fan.
They're a true fan, and we will read them off at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So any new reviews, put them down below if you want to be on the podcast. And with that, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, well then, goodbye, and
Have a-
never come back.
Have a good week.